Good afternoon. I hope you're having success stretching your canvases. This demo today is a little bit different. I'm going to show you some drawings I made this afternoon over at Mastodon State Park. And basically, I went out and I kind of selected a general area that I wanted to pay attention to, and then made a series of sketches trying to narrow down what I'd want my composition to be in a painting. I'll post photographs of the scene that you'll be able to look at on the course in Blackboard. But I wanted to walk you through the drawings that I made, and these are all pretty quick, just preliminary sketches. Trying to get a sense of the scene. I'm not worried about details, drawing leaves and grass and whatnot. So this is the first drawing that I made. And what I want you to do before you guys start your landscape paintings is make a series of compositional studies. So we talked the very first day about starting out with making the decision between whether you go horizontal or vertical. So for my first drawing, I went horizontal. Notice that the bottom of all the trees are on different planes. We go from, the closest to the bottom up to these two, back to this one, back to this one, and then even back a little bit farther. So in doing that, you create space. Whereas if you had all of the tree trunks lined up right here, half an inch from the bottom of the page or the canvas, it'd be a pretty flat painting. So my first sketch, just worked it in a horizontal manner. And let's take a look at my second sketch now, which I decided to go vertically with to see which I liked better. And you see with the vertical composition, you get a very different kind of feel for the image. It fills the plane, I think, with respect to this grouping of trees here, here, and here. I think it fills the picture plane a little bit better. So I think this, for me, is a little more exciting composition compared to the first one. Now, just after you make a couple of them, don't just decide right then, okay, I'm going to stick with this one. I want you to make at least 4 or 5 compositional studies and bring those in along with your started landscape painting on canvas for class next Tuesday. So again, notice bottom of the tree trunks moving back in space. The higher something is on your picture plane, the farther away it seems to be. Now, I'm not, again, being real detailed. I think I made these 5 sketches in about 45 minutes or an hour. So after I did this one, I felt pretty good about that one. I went back to a horizontal kind of format, and rather than just filling it with these guys, I took in a little bit more. There was a tree over here that I was really interested in how it came into it. Now I started here, worked my way spatially over here, came across. I didn't quite get to include that last tree in there, so that's going to pop up in my fourth sketch. So touching the ground plane, horizontal strokes, some diagonal strokes for the foliage off in the distance, trying to set up some groups of leaves off these trees that are in the foreground. But again, mainly just trying to work out where things fit. How does it fit? Am I happy with where things are? So on this one, I really wanted more over here. You can see it's already wanting to turn the page to the next drawing. I wanted more over here. I wasn't happy with this particular composition. One issue with this one, you look, these two trees side by side are right smack dab in the middle of the painting. And that's not, or the middle of the drawing here, and that's not a particularly exciting composition. So I'm using just like a 6B pencil here. So it's real soft. It allows you to get real dark, but you can mass in tones really quickly. So another thing that you can work out on these compositional studies is not just whether you're going to go horizontal and vertical, but what kind of proportion you want. Would this work better in a square? If I looked in here and say came along and cut off that side of the right side of this drawing, that's a pretty nice square composition. It's close to my vertical one. So I've got that. And then I went and I made another one where I made the scale of these trees a little bit smaller so that I was able to get this one in it. See, that's got a really cool shape to it there, and I was able to get that into the composition. Doesn't want to stay put. There we go. So I think out of the horizontal compositions, this one is probably the best. Now I do come down pretty low on the left side with that tree trunk, but I want it to stay on the page. I don't want to cut that tree trunk off at the bottom of the paper, because if you do that, it'll feel like the tree trunk itself is spilling out into the viewer's space or picture plane. So this one I think has some interesting movements going through space, and how the tree trunks and the limbs lead from one tree into this tree in the foreground, how this guy comes in and almost connects up with the trunk on the far left. It's a really nicely framed composition, okay, because we have all of that space working here. So this one I'm pretty happy with, along with the second one. Now I want to show you, while I was looking at this tree and really studying what was going on here, I noticed something I didn't see right from the beginning off to the far right. So I went in and zoomed in a little bit more, got this tree in there at this point. I think this is a pretty nice composition. Maybe not quite as dynamic as the previous one. I think that one's got a little more going on, a little more spatial excitement, a little nicer, if you want to call it that, rhythm. Musical terms fit really well with art. So this one, as I look at it now, just seems kind of bleak. I don't know that, I think this little tree with all these angles is really nice, but I think he's nicer as an accent as opposed to being the main focus of a composition. But it works all right. I'm a little close here to these two being on that same plane, but at least here to here to here and moving on back spatially, I'm able to distinguish different planes. One thing that really helps with a landscape drawing or painting is getting those shadows in here and using those to move around in the space. Where you get in trouble is if you say go in and draw or paint this tree and then jump over here and draw or paint this tree. One of the reasons I make so many marks and lines across the space is I'm measuring as I draw. If I were to go out there into the landscape, I'd have to walk from this tree to this tree, back up to this tree. I wouldn't just jump. And so if you can walk through your paintings or walk through your drawings, you'll be in better shape and you'll have better compositions. Now, actually, I got ahead of myself when I was talking about seeing something over here. It actually, I got this tree in this one, but I actually, when I was including this composition, and look at how the space, boom, 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 moves back. I actually saw something about right here that caused me to make the final drawing. Well, Here we go. So here is that tree with the interesting shape, and the one that ended up bordering on that one. But I really liked the tree trunk, that had the tree stump that had been just cut off here, and then there was another tree here. These 3 or 4 or 5 trunks off in the distance helped create some really nice space. Kind of left it open in here, but the stump is almost the focal point in this particular composition. Really, none of the compositions are technically bad. If you go out and draw and do some horizontals and some verticals and zoom in and pull back, you may have good compositions in all of them, but it's a matter of deciding, okay, which of these speaks to me the most? Which one do I like the most? I'm not sure it's this one. That might make a nice little watercolor, though, with that stump in it. This one I'm not too crazy about. Well, I think that's a strong composition here for how these trees on either side frame the composition. This guy, I think he's a little too centered and not really exciting at that point. Let's see if I can find the first ones. My first one was okay, but when I look at it now compared to a couple of the later ones, I don't think it's near as exciting. You spend some time out in the space, and you end up finding what really speaks to you about the space by doing these compositional studies, as opposed to just jumping in and saying, okay, I'm hell-bent for this composition, and this is what I'm going to do. I think the vertical composition with the spatial steps all the way back to here fills the plane really nicely. So I have a composition in here that I could work vertically, and I have one that I could work horizontally. So when you get to that point, it's just really a matter of personal preference. Which of your compositions do you like the most? So I want you to do your compositional studies and bring them to class on Tuesday, and then start your painting and bring that to class as well. And that should be on your canvas that you stretched. And we're going to continue to work on that painting throughout next week. So that's today's demo, such as it is. And have a good time stretching and gessoing and drawing and painting.